So we had a Baeclast with Neon and Rory, and we did get some stuff about Atlas that I'm gonna talk about a bit. And well, the first thing, obviously, go actually watch the Baeclast. I'm gonna put the link into description and chat. I mean, on the comments, yada yada yada. And yeah, let's go with the influence first. So they are going to be axing the permanent influence, where you could currently have every single map have influence if you never spawn zeros. So that's going to be gone. And I guess the TLDR of this solution that there might be very few amount of people still not want to progress their Atlas, depending how the new system will work. And those people would literally just be like the guys who push for first 100 into all self fun, and that's it. After that, there's no reason to do this, even if it works in their favor right now. So, depending how the map cycles for the conquerors are going to work. So let's say that you will always have the 5 map cycle for the first 20 watchstones, so between 0 and 20. And the 6th map, which is the actual conqueror map, will still have influence. People might want to do that because there would be every 6th map having free influence. And they said that they want to make it so that you can roll the map. So there's still a case where this would be very useful to those people. And yeah, I guess I didn't say exactly what they're doing. So what they're doing is that once you spawn the conqueror first, you do your first maps, and then you get to fight the conqueror. If you fail it, or you simply skip it, you just run the map, or just open a new map and just ignore it, you won't spawn influence anymore. But they weren't very clear if that no influence on those maps would also affect the conqueror boss map itself. Because it would be a bit weird that you have the map where you fight the conqueror, but it wouldn't have an influence. So my guess is that the actual conqueror map is still gonna have influence, but we'll see. I hope it won't, because that will absolutely completely kill this as an option. And like I said, it only matters for the 100 pusher. Yep, so that's pretty much it. Also, they changed how spawning the conquerors work. And I assume this is also gonna affect influence too. So you can no longer spawn conquerors by running low tier maps. So let's say that you spawn a conqueror with 4 watchstones, and then you just run low tier maps to quickly spawn the influence and get out and get the fight. Now you're gonna be needing to do appropriate tier maps to progress the influence, which is very good. And it's gonna slow the Atlas progression, like early league, a lot, and I think it's a good thing. Right now, what you could do is you could literally rush one of the conquerors into 4 watchstone spawn, and if you set it correctly, you could have that conqueror free map be a T16, and every 3 maps you would, well, every 5 maps I guess, or whatever the amount of the cycle would be, you would get a free map, and that would be a T16. It could be a Val Temple, by the way, if you do it correctly. Which is a bit weird because you shouldn't be getting Val Temples like that. They should only be obtained through div cards and then some leak mechanics and then corrupting T15s. But overall, this is a very good thing because you can't build up like a map pool very early, or basically free. You actually need to run some maps for that. And then for the preferred map system, but before I talk about it, go watch it.
Rory, you did say that Neon had some things he might want to say about Atlas. I know you've already made your thoughts clear with the development manifesto and everything. Is there anything you would like to add? You don't have to.
We're doing something. So, we hopefully it'll be finished this week and enough so that people can tell us how they feel about it. But we wanted to show off a more complete thing instead of just saying an initial idea. But so obviously, 100%, people want to be able to farm an individual map or whatever. This is one of multiple points, I guess, that got brought up. But they want to be able to farm a single map, and there's that whole I don't want to complete certain maps on my atlas, and then that's why they want cartographer seals so that they can undo mistakes they may make and what. I really want to do it a different way. My main problem with Carto seals is that it directly undoes what the game is implicitly telling you to do. It's also just kind of a hidden thing. But then if someone's going to be like, oh, well, I'm just not going to do this map and this map and this map, and then if I accidentally do them, I've ruined my entire league account. That's obviously very bad as well. Also want to add something that is just benefiting everyone on that front. So where we're at right now is something we're going to have effectively a kind of system of preferred maps, I guess. So per region, you get to pick. This is something we're currently going with, so we're not. It might still develop a bit more. Whenever that you can pick 1 or 2 or 3 maps, and it could be 3 of the same map, to apply a drop weighting to, like a drop weighting multiplier to. And you unlock the 1 and 2 and 3 based on like completing all maps in the region, bonus objectives, and awakening objectives. And the idea would be that you can stack all 3 of those on one map if that's what you want, or if you have a subset of maps you like, or let's say 1T14, 115, 116, and you want more of those. Of course, if you put all 3 on one map, it will make it drop very, very frequently relative to others. So we're trying to do what I like about this system is it's better for every player, even if they don't like, because you might have some player who's just like, I just want a bit more of this map because I like it. I want a bit more of these maps because I like it. I don't just want to run one all the time. And there's one reason I don't really want to be doing the run one all the time anyway, and that's just kind of because it goes somewhat against the kind of randomness of what the Atlas is intended to do, which is you're playing a kind of random subset of maps. So I get that people want to do it. This is where we were like okay with people farming one region, which obviously was too costly, losing 7 awakening levels in order to do it. So we've also changed that. Now you go down from awakening level 8 to 6, but also the map mod effect being on awakening objectives, lots of keywords here, results in you not losing that at least portion of the bonus. But I really like this preferred map system so far. It's exposed, it's very clear what it's doing, it's not hidden behind a hidden recipe, and if this doesn't solve the problem, I guess it largely depends on how much of a drop weighting multiplier we're going to be applying to the maps, but I don't know what that number is right now, but we'll try and get it right. If this doesn't solve the problem of at least that case, then we will find a better and improved or change it, whatever we need to do.
It's worth noting that the tier is rolled first, then the map that you get. So you're not making yourself get more 16s than you would have got if you put all your weighting on the tier 16 map.
Okay, so you heard their explanation, and before I go deep into the system, I'll give you a bit of TLDR. So the number of these bonuses, the preferred map region bonus, has to make this single map that you want to get the most by minimum at least 50%, because that's what the Watchstone flip-flop is. If you set it up, you will by default have 50% sustain of the chosen map. So it has to go over that in order for the people to go for that who would normally go for the flip-flop. And then potentially this new system, so this is, I guess I should first say that this is an improvement regardless how you look at it. The question is it good enough? But yeah, so this can potentially be much stronger than the flip-flop strat. So let's say that by stacking all of the 3, you would get like 75% sustain of that one map. It would just make it better than flip-flop, so there would be no reason to do it if you wanted to do one map anymore. I'm not expecting the numbers to be that high, but who knows? We'll see. And if this new system requires you to complete unique maps, we're doomed. At least hardcore people who want half of the Grandmasters done. But yeah, so I hope that they really make it so it only affects, like, it's only based on normal, like non-unique maps. And then a few other things to note about this whole system is that currently it's still in development. It's most likely not gonna hit 3.10, and it might not even come until like multiple weeks in. We kind of don't know. We have an answer from Bex about it, but we don't really know. Also, I think this is probably the most important thing to keep in mind. So this system is only put in place because of the players so there's a subset of players feeling like they shouldn't complete maps. So while this is an improvement for people who would complete their atlas entirely regardless, and it's a nice bonus to get a bit more of the maps that they prefer, the idea of this system is to make people not feel like they would need to skip on completing maps. That's the players that this is like really built for. Everything else is a bonus. GGG wants those people to feel like they don't get punished for completing maps. So the balance has to go towards that type of player. So that's why the numbers have to be pretty drastic. That's why it has to be at least 50%, like bare minimum 50%. Yeah, it has to be looked from that point of view. But yeah, so what it is and how it works. So if you didn't understand from the clip, you can prefer maps per region. So if you were to use one of those, we're just gonna call them preference orbs or pref orbs or whatever. If you wanted to get most maps for the preference, you'll be able to do 3 maps per region, or 1 map of each region for the highest bonus. So anywhere between 8 and 34, depending how much you want to do about it. And so the first of these orbs, or whatever it's gonna be, is gonna be coming from completing all maps. The second one is gonna be from completing bonus, and then the last one would be getting all of the awakening bonus from the maps of that region as well. Now, it absolutely has to require you to complete all maps, because if you would be able to get any of these preference stuffs without fully completing the region, people would do that. They wouldn't complete all the maps and still get the preference. So that has to be the bare requirement, that all maps have to be completed for the first one, and then from there you get the completion, etc. Now, a bit of an interesting point about this is that you won't benefit from this until very late, because each of the region has at least one map that is only revealed when you get 4 watchstones in. So even in the case of this, people would still do like the target farming of not completing maps early on, but that would only be like a early Atlas strat, right? That wouldn't be the end game. In the case where this is going to be good enough for people to all complete all maps. And yeah, you can apply all of these 3 into the same or into different maps. And I guess more so, this system will have to consider all of the maps of the same tier, not just the maps of the region, because I would assume that they want people to be able to do this with Awakening level 8 as well. But I don't think they're gonna make it so that while you have Awakening level 8, you can basically have 90% of the maps that one specific map. I don't think that's gonna be a thing. But if you go only for one region, so removing like one watchtown out of all regions except the region that you really want to farm in that case, first of all, your Awakening level will drop from 8 to 6, and I think they're gonna be fine with you having like, well, over 50% at least of the maps from that region. But yeah, so if the drop rate bonus was only against maps of the same region, you would absolutely leave maps of other regions incomplete. Because we can go back to Awakening level 8. Let's say you want to do the T16 Crystal Ore, you would just not complete the others. And you would have the Awakening level 8 and still be able to target from Crystal Ore. So that's why. And yeah, you would be able to complete these, right? Still there's like 16s here. But you would get the vast majority of maps being Crystal Ore. And you would have Awakening level 8. You could also just not complete these either. And that would make all maps Crystal Ore. But yeah. So the default ping pong strat gives you 50% of the sustain, like I mentioned earlier. So the numbers have to be at least that. Otherwise, it won't be used by the people who I think this system is created for. The system, I think it has to also apply to increased chance to apply the boss bonus drop. Otherwise, ping pong strat would still be better. So if you don't know what the boss bonus drop is, in 3.9, before 3.9, we had a adjacency bonus, which meant that if you're running an underground sea, a T14 mace has a higher chance to drop than a T14 desert because it's connected. And they removed that and they replaced that with a boss bonus drop, which is by default is a 1 in 3 chance. You can increase it with Awakening level. I think it's like 1 flat chance per Awakening level, so up to about 41% to happen, and that gives you one adjacent map when it procs. So that would mean that even if you have a high preference to like a desert map, when you're running Underground Sea, you would be getting a buttload of the adjacent maps because of the bonus, like the boss bonus drop. So I think that would have something against that as well. I'm not exactly sure what they're gonna do with that, but there's just so much information we don't know about the system, partly because they haven't finished it yet. But yeah, we kind of have the theory graph around it already because that's what we know. So we need to be able, like, in order to judge the system, we have to make some assumptions, right? And so this system has to require you to complete all maps, because otherwise, yep, mentioned it already. And then all of the numbers that I'm gonna show here are made up. Just to show an example, we don't actually know about the numbers, but the system cannot be multiplicative. So think about, like, you have 3 support gems, each of them being a 20% multiplier. So that would be 1.2 times 1.2, like this. So I don't think it can be, I don't think it's gonna be like that, unless the numbers are absolutely absurd, like absurdly high. And that's because if it's multiplicative, that means that in the case where you would want to have 3 maps, let's say that I want to have Underground Sea, Volcano, and Belfry. Now, you might think that, like, in their preferred case, you would have one of these, like, preference orbs into each of the map, right? But if the system is multiplicative, you actually get most of all of these 3 maps by changing the orb. So you would go all into Underground Sea first, you get a good pool of Underground Seas, then you change them into Volcano, build a bump pool of that, and then you put them into Belfry. Because let's say that the base chance for one orb would be 3%, like 3 times then we'd have 9 times and 27 times instead of 3 times, 3 times, and 3 times. There's a big difference. So I don't think it can be like that. So based on that, it has to work like friendly charges, where each friendly charge, while it's a multiplier, it's a multiplier added together. So instead of 3 times into 9 times into 27 times, it would be just 3 times, 6 times, and 9 times. And then the numbers have to go up, which I'm gonna tell you a bit like this. This number is like way too low for it to be like used by the people who are currently thinking about not completing maps. Yeah, different amount of maps on different tiers means some tiers are much easier to use for this others. Okay, so an example of that is we have 4 tier 16s here in this region. We have only, I mean, that's that because there's 1, but we have 2 in here. So the system will be better here. Like, you will get more sustain out of the preferred map in this region than you would on this region. And currently, Lex Proxima has 18 tier 14 maps. So there's like a crazy disparity. And yeah, overall, assuming that this is not a region specific multiplier, but overall multiplier to that specific map on that tier, there's over 70 T14s. But like I said mentioned earlier, I don't think they're really targeting this so that you can decide that one map and get a crazy sustain it with Awaken level 8, even though you could do that on the 16s, because there's not enough of them for this system to not work with that. So I'm assuming that they're going to normalize a bit the amount of maps so that each of the region with 4 watchstones, well, even with like any amount of watchstones, will have much closer number of same tiers. And I'm also expecting every single region to have at least 3 tier 16s with 4 watchstones. So you could apply those to all of the 3, right? That's my guess. But yeah, so the system has to account for the worst case scenario, because if the from the point of view of the system, because if the worst case scenario of this system is the case that a lot of people want to go for, then if it's not good enough, they won't use it and they will feel punished if they completed all maps, right? And that means that in the best case scenarios, it's gonna be absolutely bonkers good, which I guess is fine, because they do have to balance it around the worst case scenario, I feel. But yeah, the reshuffling is, I think, going to normalize the amount of maps between each region, because right now the corner regions have a very few T14s and the middle ones have a lot of T14. And I don't think they're gonna want to make it so that it's gonna be much easier to do on some regions than others. I mean, obviously, they can't have it like fully balanced, but I think they're gonna make it much closer than it is now. I hope they do, at least. But yeah, so before I go into the numbers here a bit, I need to first explain how map drops and the weighting works in general. So let's take a look at the 14 Underground Sea. So we're running this map, right? For the purpose of this example, let's ignore every other tier 14 except Underground Sea and the adjacent maps: Mausoleum, Arid Lake, Maze, Arsenal, Dunes, Volcano. So there's a total of 7 T14 maps that can drop, and if all of them are completed, they will have equal chance to drop, ignoring the boss bonus drop now, because when you run an Underground Sea, the boss bonus drop would give you one of these 6 maps, and it wouldn't be able to be an underground sea. So just ignore that. So what that means is each of these maps has a 1 in 7 chance to drop. Because when you add all of those together, you'll get a 100% or 7 out of 7. And now, if one of those was to be uncompleted, so you haven't done the map yet, there is a uncompletion bonus, which doubles the chance for that map to drop in comparison to other maps of the same tier. Now, not the combined chance of all the other maps in the same tier, but against a singular one. So what this means is, if one of those maps were uncompleted, the chance for that to be would be, 2 times this, which would be, 2 out of 7. But now if we were to add 2 out of 7 with the 1 out of 7 chance of the other maps, we would have 8 out of 7. So the real chance is going to be 2 out of 8 for the map that is uncompleted, or 1 in 4, and the others have 1 in 8 chance to drop. Because, 2 out of 8 plus 6 maps of 1 out of 8 chance equals 1. And obviously they could change how this works, but this is how the weightings has worked since the dawn of the Atlas. So I don't see a reason for them to change that. I mean, they could, but we have to go on an assumption, and I think this is a pretty good one. Now, if we take a look of the underground sea compared to all of the other T14s, which there's a total of 18, including the underground sea, and let's say that the one of the reference orbs has a 2 times chance, double the chance, just like uncompleted map, that would be 2. And we already covered why it can't be a multiplicative. So with 3 orbs in the underground sea, it would be a 6 times multiplier, right? So with 18 maps, that means that the chance for the underground sea would be 6 out of 23, and then the other maps being 1 out of 23. There's the math for it. The 17 without preference plus the preference, which is 6 times higher. 6 out of 23 is times higher than 1 out of 23. Keep it to the 1 again. And this is nowhere close to the number that I mentioned earlier, which is the at least 50% sustain, right? So that's clearly nowhere close to enough in this case. And this is like the worst case scenario. Now, if we apply those exact same numbers to the worst case scenario of T16s, where you have 4 maps, such as like Tower, Colosseum, Dark Forest, and Gardens, the chances would be 6 out of 9, 1 out of 9, 1 out of 9, and 1 out of 9. That's fine, right? That's like 66% sustain. Yeah, instead of preferring one map, you could also kind of like just try to get the least amount of one map. And so you could do like this, where you have Tower, Gardens, and the Dark Forest. Now, you would actually get more of that one particular map, which obviously kind of makes sense, because preferring a map makes more sense than trying to block one map more. But yeah, so you could do something like this as well. Now, obviously, the number why the double chance is nowhere close enough to being good enough. So now let's take a look at numbers were like 10 times. So each of the orbs being 10 times the chance, which sounds pretty crazy, right? So now if we put that into the underground sea setup, we would come with a 30 out of 47 chance, which is better than the flip-flop by a decent amount. And then you would have the 1 out of 47 for the rest, right? Because there's 17 maps left after the underground sea, because 18 total. So 17 plus 30 equals 1, right? Or if you wanted to split them around, you would have 10 out of 35 and that, right? Now, if we slam this number into the T16 setup, you'd have an absolute insane amount of sustain of the map that you want. So with a number like this, and them normalizing the amount of tiers, like specific tiers per region, I think that there would be very, very, very few people who would consider not completing maps. So, yeah. Now, that being said, there would still be an option to do that. But yeah, so the point of what I was trying to make here is that the issue is mainly the disparity between the best and the worst possible scenarios. But yeah, you can kind of solve it by normalizing the amount of maps you have on those tiers. Another thing that you have to account for are Zana mods. So here's the list of the Zana mods. You don't see the number, the value, but chaos or implied here is 8 chaos and beyond is 5 chaos. But instead of the cost doesn't really matter here what I'm trying to talk about, but that is the amount of completed maps that you have to have in order to get it. Now, currently, let me get you my little build spreadsheet. I don't know why I can't find it. There we go. So, in order to get the last tier of Zana, which right now is Legion, you needed 140 completed maps. Now, this isn't bonus. So if you're looking at the number, here, that says like something out of 154, that's not the number. You would have to manually calculate how many completed maps you have, because the middle one shows completion and then awakening, bonus completion and awakening bonus completion. But yeah, and then the last one, the second to last, is somewhere between, I think it's like 115 to 125. I don't know the exact number, probably something I should test, but currently 140 is what you need from the last tier. And yeah, so if you want to do Blight, you have to complete a lot of maps. And this is what I had to plan around with my Atlas. And that's why I ended up having like 8 or 9 T16s. But yeah, as long as uncompleted map is a concept, whereas if you don't have a map completed, it cannot drop unless you're running an adjacent map to it, there is always going to be an option where you might not want to complete a map. Not necessarily in the endgame setup, but it's always an option. And as long as there are enough cases where not completing a map is better than completing that map, we are going to have a problem. So they really have to amp those numbers up, or they have to change how uncompleted map works. So maybe uncompleted maps can drop anywhere as long as they're within the level restrictions. And then there would actually be a reason to always complete the map, because not completing it would mean that you were getting more of that map. But yeah, overall, I'm very happy that they're doing it. Though I'm currently still planning on starting the league with a second account that goes full completion, and then coming to my main account that doesn't do full completion. And not necessarily because I don't want to do full completion, but now I want to compare the two systems, assuming we get this system in at some point. And I really hope that they give us the information that we need, and that we don't have to actually test the numbers. Because we used to run like over 1,000 maps to test what the uncompletion bonus and the adjacent bonus used to be. So I really hope that they just actually tell us what the numbers are, so we can judge them without needing to spend weeks testing it. But yeah, overall I'm really happy about them adding this. It is straight up an improvement. It might not be enough. If it's not enough, I hope they buff it. And then the permanent influence being removed is a massive upside as well. And I'm not really expecting this to be a thing even for the racers, but it might be. But target farming, where you don't complete maps, is absolutely going to be a thing until this gets in, for the people who want to be able to farm those. So expect a lot of streamers, especially the racers, to still go target farming, because this thing is not in yet. Yeah, hope you enjoyed my little bit of analysis on what I think it needs to be in order for it to be considered the better strat for the people otherwise going target farming. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.